Hey, welcome back, everybody. We already had comments already. All right. Good to see you again, Tiffany. Millie, it's great to see you as well. It's good to see people early to the party. So, all right, let me get us started here. I'm trying to usually I have my little banners, but welcome. I actually have a lot of like random stuff here. Some of it might be a little annoying, some of it might be exciting. So, first of all, obviously, happy Halloween. I'm not wearing a costume. It's kind of not my style, and frankly, I didn't have a lot of. There's other stuff. There's other stuff I want to go through that I think. I mean, there's also like the world keeps falling apart, so I'm sure I'll comment on some of that stuff. So, in terms of upcoming episodes, I'm going to go a little dark since it's Halloween. So I'm still trying to. I still have to record a few more and schedule a few more episodes so I can record them. But I'm 2 ahead right now, which is still good, but it's not. It's not ideal. So with that, and I'm always gonna take some of this stuff down so you can see it better. All right. So upcoming episodes. So Nathaniel Gillis is a demonologist, but not in the kind of old school Catholic way that you would think. It's a little bit more complex than that, but it intersects with ideas of what the phenomena is. And we've gone over all sorts of stuff. There's kind of the nuts and bolts hypothesis. There's the future humans hypothesis. And there's kind of this sort of other kind of entity hypothesis, which you could call them demons. Nathaniel calls them molters, but it's some interesting and creepy stuff, and it's perfect for October. And then I did a follow-on episode with him about the Collins Elite. So, folks, I am sure will be very interested to see what that is all about. And as this is up, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And then, oh yeah, he's an interesting guy. He was actually on Coast to Coast AM as well. So let me just jump back on. I am all over the place today. I don't even have my nice little banner. I got to figure out a better way to do some of this stuff. All right, so those are kind of like I said, upcoming episodes. Okay, this is. I promise you, there's better stuff after this, but I thought this would kind of be. I don't know if it's going to be interesting for you folks, but we usually do state of the channel, so just bear with me. I'm kind of going to geek out a little bit, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it. And if this is boring you, like, let me know in the comments immediately and I can back off right away. But let's just put this up here, remove this, and then actually this works out kind of perfectly. All right, so what I did is you can get outputs in Excel from YouTube, but so I usually operate on the data a lot with that just to see how I'm doing. And I just want to go through this very quickly because I want to show you like how I run the channel and think about it. So actuals is just how I did year to date in September in terms of key metrics. So subscribers, views, watch time, average view duration. So the number of as an example, the number of minutes that the average viewer who just kind of watches a video watches, which is pretty good because some people, this is not like the average person does 14 minutes and 41 seconds. It's just when you average in all the people who click in for 2 seconds and say, this is not what I want, to the people who watch the entire videos. It's not, it's not as even as it looks. This is impressions. This is basically how many times YouTube shows what I want to do. This is the number of videos that I have published. And then the click-through rate is basically for impressions. If YouTube shows you an impression, then this is kind of what happened. This is what happened. Let me actually put my. Would this be? Let's probably be a little bit more helpful, just so that you don't hear me just kind of talking into the void and just hearing my voice. So anyway, the way this is if one of my thumbnails shows up, then what happens is 3% of the time someone clicks on it amidst all the other stuff, which is not great, but it's not bad either. This is the number of videos that I've published so far, 345. This is the number of hours of videos I've produced since inception. Actually, it's not. This is not what I just did in the first 9 months of the year. This is since inception. I've created 219 hours of video. This is the average length per video, so it's about 45. About 40 minutes or so, and then the average percentage viewed of a viewer who watches it, they'll watch 25 of the video percent of the video, or 26% of the video before they bounce. Okay, that's high level. This is how we're doing. So at the very beginning, like every month, I do a projection. So at the very beginning of the year, so in January, I projected that I would be at 3,442 subscribers at this point. Not doing well according to that metric. Okay. On views, I'd say I'd been at close to 200,000. Not doing great on that metric either. In terms of watch time, I am not. I'm doing okay, right? But not. If you don't have the views and the subscribers, you're not going to do as well. Oddly enough, though, I'm doing much better on individual watch time. I thought I'd be about 13 minutes. We're at 14. 14 and change. So that's pretty good. The reason I don't have all this is mainly because YouTube doesn't present the number of impressions that I had projected. I thought they'd be a little bit more generous. They're not. They haven't been. So it is what it is. I'm not going to complain about it. In terms of impression click-through rate, I was pretty close to being spot on. Okay. In terms of number of videos, I delivered, 2 more videos than I said at the beginning of the year. This is kind of what my September projection was, and this is kind of how I did versus September. I'm not going to go through that because it's too much. And then I'd say I have a little bit higher percentage of watch time. Okay, so that is what it is. I could be doing better. The biggest thing I'm like not happy with is the number of subscribers, but it is what it is. Now this is the interesting part. So if I go to January and I want to see what I had projected, let's just make sure start date. If I wanted to see the forecast I made when I first started the channel, I just slide down here. Where are we? All right, I just gotta go the opposite direction. Okay. So when I first started the channel, these are what my projections were, right? Like way off. I was way more optimistic, which is, except for impressions, I was not as optimistic on impressions. But I'm pretty much way more optimistic. Although I expected to deliver only 224 videos, right? Not 345. So I over delivered on the things that I could control, basically. Same thing on hours. I had about 33% more hours than I expected. Average length per video was also longer, although the average percent viewed is like way, way, way off. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I think for those who might be interested in this, let me just restore it back to where this was. So I'm happy with it. There we go. All right. So, yikes. Okay. All right. So that's that. I'm going to jump out of that. And let me look at some comments here. I appreciate that, Tiffany. Yeah, it's been squashing everybody, I think, unfortunately. All right. So, That's a good question. So the way I started is I started with authors, and I knew most of the authors because that was that's where I had most of the connections. Although I did know Sean McFate, who does a lot of geopolitical stuff, who really became instrumental when Wagner started doing what it was doing in Russia and in Ukraine. But I knew him from grad school. Who else? Preston Dennett, I knew from the kind of just being an author. He also just happened to be like this UFO expert, so I just kind of casually asked him on. But those were the folks that I knew. Morehouse was a cold call, like literally. I mean, a cold email, and he just responded to me there. And I think, was the first really big guest that I had. And after that, it's just one of these things. It snowballs. You say, "Hey, I had David Morehouse on. Would you like to be on?" And then that's how I started getting more and more remote viewers on. And then once I had a good cadre of remote viewers, then I started branching out to other groups. And it still doesn't work because the one big barrier is some people will just look at what your subscriber number is and they won't even respond to you, which is fair. It's totally fair. So that's something. That's why that's important to get right. Let's see. Hey, Knox Twilight, good to see you. Okay, so anyway, those are kind of the questions. All right, so let's move on with the program. Okay, ish. So I finished my novel Wormwood Down. I had to go polish it a little bit more because I sent it to a proxy for my publisher just to get a good read on it. And the response that I got was like, the story's great. There's no problems with any of the stuff that's like hard to get right, which is the plot, the characters, and things like that. But the one piece of advice I got, which I'm going to take, is I have learned how to write fiction by writing a lot of short stories. And the more short stories you write, the more concise your prose is, because you have to like quickly get to a resolution, to your climax, and then your resolution and your denouement very fast before you lose your audience. So I write like very, very tight prose. So I have to, just add a little bit more description and fluff it out a little bit, which is about the exact opposite. Like when I edit, my stories tend to get shorter. So right now it's around 91,000 words. Typical novels in that genre are about 80 to 100,000 words. So it's good. I added a subplot with an old grizzled former crash retrieval expert. His name's Sid Senna. It's a bit of an anagram. If the book comes out, I'll maybe have a contest for folks to figure out what it is. But he's just this like cranky expert on crash retrievals that is introduced to the audience. So it goes back to like the 70s in Vietnam, and then it goes into the 80s. There's like a scene in the empty quarter of Saudi Arabia, like going into like ruins of an ancient city. There's all sorts of kind of cool stuff that I got to play with. So it's mostly done. I just have to clean it up a little bit. But I've already been through it once. I just have to go through it another time and just beef it up a little bit. Okay. All right. So, all right. Bear with me on this one too. Let me just check comments before I get into. So I made a trailer and a commercial. Many of you may have already seen the commercial on Twitter, and so just for folks who don't know, Weird World War China is an anthology I put together. I'm the editor. I have lots of science fiction, fantasy, and horror writers who put stories together around the theme: what if the United States went to war with China and there were kind of supernatural elements to that story? So a bunch of different authors wrote their response to that, and I put together this anthology. Unfortunately, it's like my first anthology. It's like reality is kind of encroaching on me. But I have a trailer and then I have a commercial, so I'm going to do both. But let me just look at Let's see. So here's something interesting I'm going to say about that. Uh, well, we'll get into that in the Q&A session. But if you saw the interview with that I did with Christopher Robinson, who was a precognitive dreamer, he on September 11th, he had a dream that this was going to happen, that Israel was going to be attacked. And there were two other things that he saw which haven't happened yet. So I'm going to throw them out here. Just I'm not saying it's going to happen, but um, it's possible. But and it may happen in a way that's unexpected. But there, he saw something with the Suez, with the Egyptians kind of like shutting it down or closing it or doing something that disrupts this sort of stuff. And then he also saw potentially Turkey flipping toward the Putin Iran axis. And also, he saw something I think happened today where he saw thousands of drones like flying over an area, which would be, if Hezbollah launches them over Israel. The other thing that he mentioned is a potential confrontation in the Bosphorus, which is that strait going into the Black Sea between the United States and Russia. So he saw that on September 11th. He posted it on Twitter, and conveniently, it kind of just doesn't show up in his feed, even though he sent me screenshots of it, and he's reposted since. So just, we'll hopefully it doesn't happen. But just so folks know, the United States already has a carrier fleet en route to the Eastern Mediterranean and is sending a second one as well. So, there's going to be 2 aircraft carriers in the region, which is never a great thing. Yeah. All right. So, all right, I'm going to play these. Let me get rid of this banner. I'm going to play these 2 trailers, and I hope you, well, that trailer, there's a commercial and then there's a trailer. So I'm going to start with the trailer, which is much longer. And just let me know what you think after you see it. Here we go. Well, let me start it again. I could have sworn I removed this banner. All right, that's the first one. Let me play the second one, which is much, much shorter. So here we go. Whoop. Nope. Not
United
cooperating.
States and China clash. The world will never be the same, especially when forces beyond reality threaten to intervene. What if the United States went to war with the People's Republic of China? How would these rivals fight for supremacy on land, sea, air, and across the stochastic streams of time? What wonder weapons would be unleashed? What horrors would emerge from the irradiated sludge of the South China Sea? What heroes would rise and forever change the course of history? Tread into the deepest and darkest dimensions of the multiverse, gaze through a kaleidoscope of fractured realities, and bear witness to the disturbing visions of World War III from today's greatest minds in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Weird World War, China. Available now from Baen Books at baen.com.
All right, that's it. You can order the eARC if you're interested, which is just an electronic advanced reader copy that some people like ordering these things, but if you want to read it right away, you can get it, or you can wait and pre-order the actual physical copy, which comes out January 2nd. Right now, it comes out, or you can get it now, an electronic copy. But the advanced reader copy is the one that may have like a few errors, if any. There's one for sure, which is not a big deal, but the final comes out on January 2nd. So anyway, the link is in the description if you're interested at all. All right, I'm going to move on now because I don't want to belabor this thing. Let's see. Yeah, well, it depends which ones, right? Who knows? Yeah, it's definitely good. It's definitely good, but hopefully it does well enough that I can do a sequel. Okay, in terms of, all right, another shameless plug. This is going to be very, very quick. So ways to support the channel, and I'm going to focus on the last one, mostly. But the ways to support the channel is obviously like, subscribe, share as much as you can. Subscribers help me the most. I also have a Patreon account, which is, you can see it right below my name. The way that works is you get to see one episode. Well, it depends on the tier, but if you're the highest tier, you get to see one episode early a month. You get to see 2 episodes at any tier. There's like usually I'll have some special episode a year, or sorry, 2 of them. As an example, one of the episodes, the first episode that I shared that you can't see on my YouTube channel, is the episode I did on bad aliens, but it's kind of a trigger warning cut where I actually get to show some mutilations and stuff like that. But that's just, it was too spicy for YouTube and I didn't want to even try it. But there are like things like that I'll share there that I won't share anyway, but it's 2 a year. There's also a Discord site that everybody gets to be a member of. And then there's a Zoom call that the folks at the 2 top, so the sergeants and lieutenants, the 2 top tiers, get to attend once a month, where we just talk about anything. It's just a Zoom call. So just check it out. There's a bunch of stuff on the site. The other ways to support are, obviously there's the buy me a coffee thing, and you just click on the site, which is not at issue. The other thing that you can do is obviously buy these books that I'm showing. That's also super helpful. And then the last thing is, I want to do this very quickly because I don't want to spend too much time on it. Let me just set this up for a moment. Okay. That went a little bit too quick to what I wanted to show you. but we'll get back to that in a second. So there's kind of just special Halloween merchandise, and there's actually a story behind this. And there's not much. There's like, well, there's a bunch of stuff, but it's 2 designs. So just add this, keep my mug down in the corner. Okay. All right. So there was an owl that showed up in my backyard. Okay. And I'm just gonna call him. I'm just gonna call him Marvin. So I got pretty close. I got within 5 to 10 feet of him, and I don't know why I'm calling it a him, but uh, there's a picture of him. I also have a picture of a full moon. Both pictures I took, so it's kind of my stuff with the "Through It Glass Darkly" logo. So that's version 1, and then version 2 is same picture essentially with the Vikings home, which is a place on um, Emerald. I forget what the name of the inlet is, but there's a place in Lake Tahoe. There's this old Swedish kind of castle that is on the shore of Lake Tahoe. And Emerald Bay is what the place is called. So this is again a picture I've taken of that, and that's the castle you always see behind me in different videos. But that's it. That's all I wanted to say about that. But um, I have it, have it on mugs and all that good stuff. Okay, so with that, let me just take a look at the comments. Yeah, it's good stuff. Anyway, yeah, that's a. I don't know actually. So like on my first anthology, I have like a line that says just "Through a Glass Darkly," and it turns out it is a verse from Corinthians in the Bible, and it means exactly what you think is kind of the Platonic cave, right? Where you have kind of, you see the shadows off the wall, but you don't really see the full reality. You see through a glass darkly. I mean, that's not Plato, but that's the Bible, but it's the same concept, right? Your senses do not fully determine what the kind of full scope or nature of reality. We're necessarily looking through a very narrow filter that is, kind of keeps us alive, but we're still missing the greater reality. So that's kind of the origin of Through a Glass Darkly, and I kind of just took off from there. So all right, let's see. Let's go back to what we're on next. That's kind of the scheduled program. So now we get to talk about whatever people want to talk about. Um, I mean, we can start with, oh wow, like insta questions already. That's great. All right, so yeah, again, it's like this stuff is, a lot of it's intuitive. Like it just happens this way, and then it ends up just working. Like I did not, like, that was not my conscious intention for it to work out this way. It just kind of subconsciously I chose kind of the name that fits for what's going on with the UAP hearings and all that stuff. Yeah, I know. I keep I'm on him about it. He was somewhere else this week, and he's going to be there until the end of the week, and then I'm going to try to schedule time with him next week to record it. So we haven't even recorded it yet. But yeah, it's driving me nuts because, and I could tell you exactly what episode it's going to be, because I have like all my episodes numbered, and episode 195 is missing right now. And that is episode 195. So I just still have to record it with him. But he fully intends to do it. He just got waylaid on a few other things. So, oh, by the way, he's going to be on Concrete. I don't know when, but I need to check to see if he was on recently. But it's been recorded already, and we thought it went well. So if you've seen that Danny Jones channel, definitely check it out when it comes out, because he's going to be basically the first remote viewer that channel has interviewed, and it's got like 700,000 subscribers, something like that. So it'll be good. It'll be good for him. All right. So let's quickly go into. Yeah, I don't know how deep I want to go into this because I do talk about geopolitics, but yeah, the whole is Israel thing not good. Um, and what I'm concerned about is we've had 7 million migrants stream inside our borders, and if someone were planning something like this, particularly if Iran were involved, you better be damn well sure that they would have sent people over. So either Hamas, it's loosely affiliated with Iran, Hezbollah, which is tightly affiliated with Iran, and then maybe even Ukrainian elements from Al Quds, things like that. So I'm not claiming to have knowledge of it, but I would not be surprised if they took advantage. Same thing with people who are affiliated with Russia, so Russian saboteurs. So there have been a number of back in April, and then I think in August there were two ammunition plants that had fires, or there's one in Louisiana. I can't remember where the other one was, but the one in Louisiana produced a certain type of gunpowder widely used in or many U.S. weapon systems, and it's like a single source supplier. So while our betters, our elites, signed us up for this to supply Ukraine, they didn't increase productive capacity, like just complete. I mean, they're starting to with javelin missiles and things like that, but complete and utter reckless incompetence. And now that we have with Israel, we had a store of ammunition there as well, particularly artillery, and it was meant for the Israelis, but we sent much of it to Ukraine. So the Israelis are trying to go into this thing, and they're not necessarily full up on artillery and things like that you need to deal with it. So I mean, it depends on how ruthless the Israelis want to be, and based on some of the reports of Hamas. I mean, they're a terrorist organization, and people who are like, look, I'm not gonna mince words. Like, they should be utterly and annihilated in force. The Hamas, right? The organization, like, there should be no mercy, zero mercy, and that's kind of the reason that we're in this mess, is because no one ever. There's just too much pressure from certain elites that this is one of those things that it's a total war situation like we had in the Civil War, where Sherman marched to the sea, um, firebombing of Dresden and things like that. The only way you can get rid of an implacable enemy like this, that is, and I'm not Jewish, but like if there were an organization that there was no compromise, and the only compromise that they could see possible is the utter annihilation of your people. I mean, gloves are off. Gloves are off. You're also seeing incompetence in, um, the, so some knucklehead over in the Pentagon, some press idiot, reported that we had counterterrorism units there to rescue, like hostage rescue people, to get Americans who were taken hostage, because there were Americans, like dual citizens, who were taken hostage. And that's basically, they just telegraphed to Hamas that Delta operation, like the combat applications group, elements of that are there, which is completely fucking dumb. Excuse my language, but you just put all those people, their lives, in danger by leaking that to the press. It's just not helpful. But I don't know. I mean, the way to defeat it is to have a humanitarian corridor to the sea, have those people, put them in ships, send them to Europe, and then anybody who doesn't leave, you cordon it off, you shut off water, food, electricity, um, and you starve them out. You do a Leningrad. You do what the Germans did to Leningrad. You surround them and you starve them out. and then after they're completely weakened, then you go in and then you annihilate them. But I don't know if more sentimental people will allow that to happen. But that's the only way this stops. Let's see. I mean, why? I mean, I think they're kind of de facto doing that, right? I don't think they necessarily should. I don't think we should get involved at all, to be honest, um, because this is what happens. Like, this is why we were there for 20 years. We were there for 20 years to cut the weeds. Every time the grass goes up, we would, annihilate like terrorists that come up. And the moment that we had this debacle in Afghanistan, which, to his credit, I'm not a fan of General Milley, but in his 60 Minutes interview, he had advised Joe Biden to leave something like 2,500 or 3,500 troops in Afghanistan just to make sure that outcome didn't happen. And he was overruled. The politician overruled the military expert. And as a result, you had an absolute debacle. And what happened after that? Putin sniffs weakness, so he invades Ukraine. Hezbollah and Hamas sniff weakness, so they, do what they're doing to Israel. I think Israel's strong enough to just completely annihilate. I think the best thing the U.S. can do is just let it happen. Just let it happen. Don't go in and say, oh, the poor. I mean, they were literally decapitating toddlers. Like, no mercy, zero, done. So that's where I stand. I don't think it helps that I say any more than that, but I have very little sympathy. And then you have organizations with the United States standing with, I mean, just everybody's true colors is coming out. No comment. I'm trying not to be. Here's the fundamental issue right now. We have a patronage system in the national security establishment in the United States. So what does that mean? It means I think like you. I think you're a good guy. You're going to come and you're going to advise me on this. And what is happening is you have people who never spent a second, like a single half a second in uniform, like Jake Sullivan, who's the national security advisor, didn't spend a single day in uniform. So, like, has no idea what it's like to march 10 miles and, like, have your feet bleeding with new boots and, like, getting trench foot, like, all sorts of stuff that you don't think of. And, like, these people are running our national security establishment because, they believe the same things. And this is, I'm not saying this is left or right. I'm saying the entire national security establishment. And then you have also other, like, our current defense secretary is a stone cold moron. He's just an idiot. Like, and I know that because there's a guest, and I'm not going to say who it is, that I've interviewed on this podcast who used to work for him, and he didn't have like mentally deficient is the word I would use for the guy. So we have leaders who are mentally deficient who shouldn't be in the spots they are, and it's just, this happens in every major war. You're just going to have to, you're going to have a huge loss of American lives in another Kasserine Pass somewhere around the world. And then all the political generals who got there because of politics are going to be replaced. And, people like Patton emerge like they did in World War II. So it's the same. It's the same with the Russians, right? People were like making fun of them at the very beginning of the campaign. And they were utterly incompetent, but the Russians are always that way in every war. They just like die in droves, and then they learn. And when they learn, then they just muscle it out and they find a way to win. So again, I'm not on Russia's side by any means, but you can't assume that these people aren't learning, because they are learning. Let's see. Yeah. We stop mowing the lawn and this is what happens. So, but I mean, if I were the Israelis, I wouldn't mow the lawn anymore. I would pour gasoline on the grass, and then I would set it on fire until there was nothing left, and then I'd burn, and then I'd salt the earth, because that's the only way you're going to stop this. But again, I'm not running anything. and it's much easier said than done. There are a lot of complications because I'm sure that the 68 IQ Hamas members, which I'm not joking, that's kind of the average IQ of people in the Gaza Strip is 67.9 according to some academic study. Um, even they have like stored up on food and water. They have tunnels underground, so it's going to be easier said than done to cordon them off. But anyway, I don't want to. I should not dwell on this. Um, yeah, but I should not dwell on this. Okay, so what else? What else? What else is going on? I saw a movie called Monsters of California. Has anyone seen that yet? The Tom DeLonge movie. The reason I watched it is the intelligence community will sometimes seed different ideas into the population by using Hollywood. And Tom DeLonge is a member, founded To the Stars Academy, and he's surrounded by people like Hal Puthoff, Jim Semivan, and um, there's a lot of stuff that has actually been covered on this channel that, and it's inartfully done. They'll just say like, "This is how a flying saucer works," and it compresses space time and this and that. And it'd be like with a girl. The protagonist will be with a girl trying to impress a girl, and then it'll be like, "By the way, a flying saucer works." It's just like, all right, it's a little ham-fisted, but there are a lot of things where they'll just throw out things that have been said, like time is simultaneous. We don't know who these being like. Are they? What planet are they from? It's like, well, it's more complicated than that. They'll say things like that. Yeah, I mean, look, it's entertaining, but I wouldn't like. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. So it's just about this kid whose father disappears, but it turns out that he worked on ATIP, like the Advanced Anomalous Threat Identification program or whatever it's called, and he has these coordinates, and there's the government knows some stuff, but they don't know everything. Um, they send aircraft up to chase these things, but they know that they're far more advanced. And it just seeds some of the ideas. I mean, a prominent example is like the Tom Campbell thing, and as soon as I was watching, I'm like, did somebody like watch this show? Because that's exactly what Tom Campbell said. It was like, but I'm sure he said it in like 17 other different venues. But his example was if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there, does it make a sound? Right. And the answer is, well, no, because there is no forest if there's no one there to observe it. Right. So he's just talking about the nature of reality and, things like that. I'm trying to think. There's a few other things that they mentioned, but in terms of the nature of what the phenomenon is, it's kind of like there's one thing that I haven't heard, which is kind of interesting. I'll just throw it out there, was that there were different intelligences operating and have been operating here for thousands of years. And some are working with, us, like the United States, like the Western part of the world where there's more individuality and things like that. And and more kind of individual choice, democracy, republic, whatever. And then there's some that are more authoritarian. And then they kind of, work with humanity in, China or Russia. Anyway, they're just seeding these ideas. The other thing you need to understand is that they might be seeding these ideas in order to prepare with humanity. And that's the other thing. The reason that they purport that they don't explain any of these things is that most people aren't sophisticated enough or intelligent enough to understand all the complexity. I think that's bullshit, but that's kind of the reason they quote unquote keep this thing quiet. So in watching it, don't assume all this stuff is the way it really is. There might also be an agenda to make stuff up, throw people off. But a lot of the stuff that I've heard in interviewing people on the podcast was very similar to some of the concepts that they were throwing out there. So it's worth a watch. It's not stellar cinema, and it's not like the writing's a little ridiculous. The main character is obviously like Tom DeLonge, like a kid version of Tom DeLonge. So just take it with a grain of salt, but it's entertaining. All right, let's see. Yeah, we got the. No, you can get it on. You can rent it on Amazon Prime. Yeah, he did say Locust. Yeah, he said Locust in 2001. Um, yeah, and Eric Walker. I wonder if that's like a pseudonym for Eric Davis. Right? There's just a lot of weird. Oh, did you catch the part about the Atlantean root race? Greys in the Atlantean root race, and they say they're real. And it's like, what is the Atlantean root race? What the heck is that? So, yeah, it was definitely an interesting movie. I recommend it, but don't blame me if you don't like it because it is kind of cheesy. It's a little, there's some cheese in there. So, like, there's Bigfoot. Bigfoot shows up in there, and it's kind of like, you have aliens, you got Bigfoot, you got flying saucers, you got, all this other, like, it's just too much. They just try to cover too much ground. What else? What else do folks want to talk about? What do you guys think of the trailers? Are they terrible? Are they cheesy? Are they? Because you're going to see the commercial a lot. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably. The trailer I won't show that. The long one I won't show very often, but the book though will be. Um, I'll probably slip that into some of the stuff I do, but that is what it is. I appreciate your honesty, Kid Rocks. Um, what else do anything else that folks have to say? I appreciate that, Tiffany. Yeah, I figure some people like it, some people won't. You know, it is what it is. Let's see what. Okay, so we talked a little bit about geopolitics. We talked about monsters of California. Oh, interesting. So that's Madame Blavatsky, the Russian like mystic back in like the 1800s, I think. And then theosophy is also what what's that guy's name? Um, Russell Targ was a theosophist before he worked at SRI and like invented the laser and or did work with lasers. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know, David, if you were here to see the two commercials for the book I have coming out in January, but that's essentially what it was. Oh, what about Crowley? Oh, did they talk about Crowley and Parsons in that in Monsters of California? I can't remember if they did. Yeah, I think they did. You're right. Yeah, I've been touching on all this stuff too. Like I have a huge discussion about that with what's his name? Gillis. in the next in the in the second episode when we talk about the Collins Elite. So we definitely cover that ground. So for folks, yeah, it makes sense. So for folks who don't know, Aleister Crowley, the British occultist, um, o, OTO. I don't know what that. I forget what that stands for, but it's like some ritualized, group, and he made contact with a entity named Lamb that looks kind of like a gray. And then Jack Parsons was the founder of Caltech, one of the founders of Caltech, and he's a Rocketeer, an initial, member of kind of what ultimately became NASA and even just the U.S. space program, because there's more military than there's kind of NASA. Huh. Say more. That's actually fascinating. So Targ, Exodus, what is it? Say, yeah, definitely say more about this. Huh. So what is the root race? What does that even mean? That they're the ones who can kind of control the simulation in a way, or like what's the theory around that? Because that's actually pretty interesting. I haven't heard that. Again, all these stuff is theory. We're just talking stuff. I'm not saying that's what it is. Here we go. Oh, is that what they were talking about in Monsters of California? Like the war that's still, like the war that's still going on? Hey, good to see you, Timepiece Adventures. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah, this is some dangerous stuff, man. I don't want. I don't want. But I mean, look, it all makes sense, right? Because Blavatsky was before the Third Reich, and like all that crazy stuff happened. Um, so I mean, it played into the history of what of like some of the dark stuff that actually happened. So here we go. There's more. Oh, first we'll do that. Thank you again, Timepiece Adventures. Yep. Yep. The Egyptian Thoth, or he's I think Thoth is like an Egyptian god, but also a Hermetic mystic. Hermes, Trismegistus. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of this lore out there that I'm like completely ignorant about. Yeah, that's okay. I just think it's hilarious that you're not really typing this, you're talking it. I think that's awesome. Now I have to like imagine that you're actually saying it instead of typing it. Yeah, there's a lot of weird. This stuff is not. Oh, about I didn't really get into the shirt, right? So I was talking about that shirt about this owl. So let me say a little bit about that. One evening, it was around 6 p.m. I'm home alone. The rest of my family's off down in Southern California doing something, and I I see like a lump on my fence. I'm like, what's that? And then I go outside and I start walking toward it, and there's this owl. It must have been 2.5 feet tall, just hanging out and like literally in the center of my backyard. just like sitting there, just looking around. So I crept back inside and I got like a camera. I started taking pictures of it, and it's just looking at me like, "What's up? What's up?" And so I live on a hill, so I walked up the hill, and it was just watching me, and I got within 10 feet of this thing, and it was just like looking at me and like not a care in the world, and it let me take 1,000 photos of it, just like on repeat. It was really weird. Like it was just like there, just hanging out, not afraid, nothing. It was I've never had that happen to me before. I've never been that close to an owl. Uh, but I mean, I think there's a pair that lives around my backyard because I can hear them at night. But great horned owl, all that stuff, kind of. But that's about the closest kind of mystical experience I think I've ever had. But you can see it. It's kind of weird, huh? Let's see. Huh? Yeah, and you're saying root race because yeah, it's just the I love how the dictation software is saying the room race, but yeah, the root race. Okay, you're talking about avatars, not spiritual entities. Okay, so in other words, they have like a human incarnation, and they kind of inhabit that human incarnation, but they can kind of control the story around them so that they, you know, everything is wonderful and etc. Huh. So who created all these root races? The Sumerians? I mean, according to again, I'm not saying this is all true. It's just a fascinating narrative that nobody can prove or disprove. So because of that, anything is it's just interesting. But this is like I can like folks can find more about this by reading Blavatsky's stuff. Huh. And that's Zechariah Sitchin. So that's he talked a lot about ancient astronauts and things like that. Like this is the Anunnaki kind of creating like a human slave race that mined gold, and this is kind of the ancient Sumerians, I'm assuming, right? Huh. But how do you know it's true, David? How do you know it's real? That's the problem with all this stuff. Unless you personally experience it, there's no way to validate any of this information. Blavatsky and Alice Bailey. Kev, are you on the Blavatsky train, or are you just kind of supplying the kind of academic sources for it? Because I know you do talk about the like Atlanteans. You talk about the like Greek symbology on some of the recovered craft, things like that. Oh yeah, sorry. I keep thinking it's the going to the next thing. David, can you post a link for that channel so that people can just take a look or and just come back to this video and and grab that just to make it easier for folks. Yeah, sorry I can't talk about the Atlantean root race. I don't know anything about this. Um, is any of this stuff related to like that whole like Black Sun Vril stuff that the Germans were so interested in? Like that, I think that Vril society, like that race of beings that lived underground, and I think it was called like the Coming Race or something like that in the 1800s. It was like a fiction novel, but it was based on a lot of this mysticism. Anyone? No. All right. What else do folks want to talk about? Oh, here we go. I haven't listened to much stuff by Billy Carson. Maybe I need to focus on some of his stuff a little bit more often. Nothing. No one wants to talk about anything else. That's been an hour. I mean, I can shut her down, but it looks like we have more people than we started with. So, what do folks want to talk about? No, but I should. I like to hike, but I've been atrocious recently. In fact, I plan to start. It's just I'm constantly busy. Paul Wallace. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Hmm. That's the first time I've heard that. If everyone has a human incarnation, then who's us? Who's us when you say except for us? And why are we not eternal souls? What's the deal behind that? Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the questions. Yeah, I want to know why. Like, I want to know this. This is the first time I heard that in any theory about like a non-physical aspect of humanity. In every single one, it's always eternal. Yeah, it does. It does sound off, but I don't know. Yeah, it could be that it's just trying to get us to evolve into the next, but I don't know. Maybe it's a way of communication. Yeah, I want to. Yeah. Oh, so those are Sumerian gods, right? I.e., they could be Anunnaki names like Enmi, Enlil, and then Anu. Yeah, I hope so because like, what are we doing if that's not the case? Oh no, Gilgamesh was the hero, but the Gilgul Neshamet. I don't know. I don't know who that is. Yeah, were there characters in Sumerian myth, if not gods? Yeah, I'm thoroughly ignorant on a lot of this, ancient Mesopotamian mythology and things like that. So forgive me that I don't have answers for it. Um, David, were you the like you have experience in like the Cabal, like Kabbalist stuff, if I remember correctly? I think you knew a lot about that sort of thing. You guys are going dark on me. I mean, this is a Halloween episode, but you know, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could also be, avatars in a simulation with a higher consciousness, right? That just partitions part of its consciousness in these meat puppets we call us. Yeah, I really don't know. What do other folks think about this? I mean, it's dark. You guys went dark. You went dark on me. Yeah, the key word is practicing. So I am not a practicing Catholic, but I am a Catholic. I just don't practice. Um, yeah, I could never. Growing up, I could never stand going to mass. Like it was just like I'll definitely take a look, David. Like that, the stuff is fascinating. I will definitely take a look. Oh yeah, yeah. I actually was hoping that was going to happen, right? Where people, because he's such a good communicator, and frankly, I think he's of all the remote viewers out there, I think he's probably the most skilled in terms of communication, right? And I think the reason that is he was a combat arms officer beforehand, so he had to. You just have to be a communicator when you're leading, lots of men into combat. Whereas a lot of the other remote viewers were just, or not just, but they were military intelligence people from the beginning. And, you're just, you have the rank, but you're not really leading a large organization. So you're not really required to be someone who is like super charismatic and things like that, where people will follow you. Uh, but I don't know. I could be completely wrong. Yeah, I never really practiced RV because I'm waiting for Morehouse to set up his class because I'm going to take it then. But I have been I still have been doing the dream, the dream stuff, and writing down dreams and things like that. And I've kind of had uh, two precognitive dreams, like something actually did happen after, shortly after the dream, and then one potentially precognitive dream, which I wrote about on my in the community tab, which is the thing about Mitch McConnell stepping down. Like I just had the dream. I wasn't focused on politics, but if that happens, that was precognitive. So I'm like 2 for 3, but the three has not been resolved yet. If he steps down before his time is up in the Senate, then I will have a trifecta. But I'm trying to do more. And then I've also had some weird dreams. So I'll tell you one right now. And then weird stuff happened after. But again, it could just be random chance. So one night I had a dream about a 3-winged hawk. And there's nothing in the Christian tradition about odd-winged angels, but in the Islamic tradition, there is. There are, angelic beings with like 3 wings. Anyway, regardless, could just be symbolism, whatever. But I felt protected by whatever it was. And actually the night before I said I wanted to my intention going to sleep was I wanted to commune with a benevolent non-human entity that had my best interest at heart. So I just had this weird dream. I don't remember anything, I don't think before or after, but this is 3-winged hawk. So the next day, I'm just kind of sitting down in this office and my front door just blows open. The wind blows the door open. So I get up and walk outside, to close it. And before I closed it, I just had kind of a desire to walk outside. So I just kind of stepped outside my front door, and this hawk literally swooped down 10 feet, kind of like above the ground and in front of my face, and then flew up the hill and then landed on this redwood tree and just perched down and looked down at me. Again, it could just be a complete coincidence, but literally the instant I walked outside, this hawk kind of came in and right after the door blew open, all that stuff. So, is it coincidence? Sure, probably, but it was weird. Okay, thank you, David, and thank you for the recommendation. I'll definitely take a look. I I think the Catholic Church screwed up with Vatican II. I thought it was totally awesome. I think if they were still doing the mass in Latin, I would probably still be going to church service. Um, like solely because of intellectual curiosity. Like my father knew Latin because he was an altar boy, right? And I never went to a Latin mass or anything like that. But I think I just don't get anything out of this. Like I don't get anything out of it, right? And I think like a Latin mass would be kind of interesting for me. I'd probably wear off pretty quickly, but yeah. So in terms of what I think about them, I, I don't dislike him, but I'm not like he's too liberal. He's too liberal. That's all I'm going to say. He's just too. I don't know. I was just raised. I mean, just doesn't. He doesn't feel right. Whatever that means. I'm sure he's perfectly a wonderful human being, all that stuff, but he just doesn't feel right. Yeah. I think there's definitely some of that. I think there's definitely some of that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I keep every time I talk to him, I'm like, when are you gonna do the class? Uh, because like I said, I've run experiment, just not intending to do remote viewing, just and he basically would say, yeah, that was what you did was extended remote viewing. He's just like, and what you saw was like you had a hit, and that was the Ingo Swan experiment that I ran. But Uh, yeah, so I like believe me, I keep pushing for him to do it, and he's gonna do it. It's just there's like not a ton of urgency just yet. But the more that he does these things, like it's like I can tell it's keeping him active. Like he loves it. So I'm glad that he's doing it. What do you mean by OG book? Like his Psychic Warrior? That one? Yep, still here. Still here. Yeah. Wheelock's Latin. Okay. Because my wife, I think took Latin in high school, and then she also took French. So she doesn't remember any Latin, but it helped her on the SAT, right? Just like doing simple, like just your verbal skills, and because it's a root of a lot of different English words, and other and other words in other languages too. All right, what else do folks want to talk about? Oh, I have that one. It's actually like right behind my computer. So I've gone through a lot of it. Like I know in theory how to do it, but well, I haven't quite finished. I mean, you're right. You're right. Like it is extremely but it's extremely dense too. Like it goes into all the theory um and there's a lot to remember. So, but I have a fairly decent sense of how to do it. But I want somebody to train me. I don't want to just kind of try to figure this out on my own. Yeah, it's a good book. That's how I discovered him. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like in like exquisite detail, he breaks it down better than anybody else, I think, because he goes through like the physics of it and different theories about how it might work. So, about the kind of collective unconscious, the subconscious, the conscious mind, how they interact, um, eight dimensional holographic universe, all that stuff. Have you seen my video on that? I have a whole video on it. Of course, I've read. It's actually one of my best performing videos. Here, let me find it real quick, and I'll just post it. I'll post it here. But yeah, it's literally one of my best. Where is it? I just gotta quickest way for me to find it is just to put my top performing videos. Here we go. Um, and it was like a total sleeper hit. I hope you guys can't hear that. It's like a really annoying video. Um, a really annoying commercial. Yeah, I don't even know if you can. I don't know what the best way to transmit this is, but literally, if you type in Itzhak Bentov, you'll find this video, or you'll come close to, because that's how people find it. They do a YouTube search for "Stalking the Wild Pendulum" or Itzhak, mainly Itzhak Bentov, and they find it. But I just kind of did a summary of it, but it is a super super interesting. I wonder if you could. Maybe I can play it. Maybe I can play it right now. It's like an 8-minute video. Um, What does that mean? No, no, there's something going on. I mean, the whole like thing in Israel was, part of it. Like it's not, it's also oh yeah, yeah. Let me I'm trying to think. Let me try something. I'll start to play it, then I'll stop it, and then I'll just ask you if you can actually hear the audio. Um let's see if there's a quick way for me to do that. Uh Let me just play this commercial so you guys don't have to suffer through it. Wow, they put like two commercials. Okay. Let's see if wow, it's just like all right. So go to preset, share screen, share screen. Um okay. All right, y'all can see that? Get rid of the banner. All right, now let me know. I'm going to try to play this. Let me know if you can actually hear it.
Welcome back.
Can you hear it?
Today I'm going to talk about the nature of consciousness and at least to try to explore a scientific underpinning for it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go way back to the late 1970s and talk about some of the concepts that were produced in a mental model of what a scientist, an autodidact scientist named Itzhak Bentov, had come up with. And let me be very clear, there's been decades in between and a lot of advances in science. So all the errors in this are 100% my own. But as I went through and read this book called Stalking the Wild Pendulum, a lot of the concepts are intriguing, and I wanted to share a few of them. In this mental model that Itzhak Bentov composed, and just to give you a sense of who this man was, he was born in Czechoslovakia. During World War II, he lost both his parents and two siblings in a Nazi concentration camp. Then he was able to escape to Israel. And in Israel, he became part of the Israeli army's nascent scientific corps and was credited with inventing their first rocket. And the reason I say he's an autodidact is he did that with no formal scientific training whatsoever. He also invented this steerable catheter when he was in the United States. And he was, by all accounts, a fairly brilliant man. Now, in his conception of consciousness, he starts at the level of individual atoms resonating in space-time. And the point that he makes throughout the book, the thread that's most common, is that reality is in a resonant state. So what we perceive is, these vibrations, which, starting with the vibration of simple atoms, rising up to how molecules vibrate, rising higher still to more complex organisms like humans that have a heartbeat that also resonates at a certain frequency. Then you get to things like, just sound waves, light waves, gravity waves. They all have the principle of coherence and decoherence. So, coherence is when you're kind of at a peak amplitude with a wave, and then when it brushes up against another wave and cancels out to a null state or node, you have this kind of decoherence. And it's almost reality is kind of the same way, where we live in what we perceive as reality when the frequency is vibrating at a certain rate and it reaches its peaks and troughs, but there's a small infinitesimal amount of time when that wavefront hits zero, and we go to a reality that vibrates at a much higher and finer frequency. And he has views on evolution. So kind of the laws of entropy be damned, which the law of entropy is that as the system progresses through time, it has a tendency to become more chaotic. His view is that as the universe becomes more conscious, life forms in that universe become more conscious. So starting with individual atoms, there's a quanta of consciousness. It's very limited and the level of perception is very small. But as you advance up the scale of evolution, when you get to humans, we also have a very narrow version of a consciousness. For instance, we can only perceive sounds between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. But anything lower, infrasound, or above, ultrasound, we don't perceive. At least our sensors can't pick up and cohere it. Now, our ears or our bodies will react to it if it's high enough amplitude. So for instance, infrasound has been known to people perceiving things or going crazy or having experiences that they describe as supernatural. Incidentally, that infrasound is below the 20 hertz rate. There's also something that he talks about in the planet. If you look at the circumference of the Earth, it's about 40,000 kilometers. And if you look at the wavelength of the waves that resonate in the ionosphere, right? You just a simple wavelength calculation. If you take the speed of an electromagnetic wave and you take the diameter of the Earth, you get something called the Schumann resonance. And what that is something on the order of 7.5 hertz. What's interesting is when I talked to David Morehouse, who actually recommended this book, and if you haven't seen those episodes, you should definitely look at him. He was a military remote viewer who used a technique that allowed him to open his aperture of perception to see this greater reality that Itzhak Bentov postulated. The ideal brainwave state to get into a remote viewing session is about 8 to 12 hertz, which is very, very interesting because the Schumann resonance is about 7.5, 7.6 hertz, and it's also an infrasound frequency, which is associated with supernatural visions and things like that people attribute to just a crazy effect of infrasound. Further, as you go kind of lower to a theta wave state, which is sleep, it's lower on the ultrasound spectrum. Delta wave is sleep. Theta wave is somewhere in between, typically where people do meditation, allegedly do astral projection, etc. They have kind of these paranormal experiences. So regardless, everything in his model, which is what he would admittedly call a working model, says that the reason reality as we know it, physical reality, exists is because everything's vibrating at a certain frequency. Now, the next concept that's related to that is if you have an oscillator like a pendulum. Now, a pendulum swings left, right, left, right. When it's at its height, when it slows to a halt, it's at its maximum potential energy. And then as it swings down and goes to the opposite side, it hits a velocity of 0. And that's kind of the classical mechanics, and it's pretty straightforward. There's no mystery to that. However, as the ball of the pendulum approaches its peak, there's a point at which it's called the Planck distance, which is an infinitesimally small distance at which that all the atoms in that ball transition into the subatomic state, essentially, so a quantum state. And in that state, the traditional continuity of Newtonian mechanics breaks down, and we get what is classically known as the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And at that point in time, you either know the velocity or you know the location of that ball. Now, we don't know both. So in Bentov's model, what effectively happens is for that infinitesimally small instant, the ball is everywhere all at once.
Oh, we got a
Your
commercial.
favorite social network is back
Fantastic. Hold on, let me deal with this.
with a brand new owner.
And it's moving at zero velocity. And it's moving at zero velocity because we know what the velocity is, but we don't know what the position is when it's in that quantum state. Then it coheres back again and moves back into the classical Newtonian mechanics that we're used to. Now, that leads to kind of his third point in this particular model. And he has an interesting mental map for how he thinks about it. If you take a Cartesian coordinate system and you label the y-axis time and you label the x-axis space, and then at a 45-degree angle you put in the speed of light, okay, and just call that kind of our natural barrier today. For every 1 second that you pass, you go up the chart on the y-axis, you move in space 300,000 kilometers. You move for 2 seconds, you move to 600,000 kilometers. Again, if you're moving at the speed of light. Now, theoretically, you can't move the speed of light, but let's just say if you were able to do so, and you look at the chart, if you were able to move faster than the speed of light in 1 second, that would put you below the curve of where the speed of light kind of comes in, and your environment starts to become more space-like because you're approaching the x-axis. As you get closer and closer to the x-axis, so as your speed approaches the infinite, your time axis, your subjective time axis would basically intersect with the space, which would mean that you're in all points at once and time is effectively stopped. Time's not moving very fast. And that's kind of the model that he uses for kind of higher realities. If you're able to somehow slow down time by meditating, getting into these contemplative states, then you in effect have an ability to briefly access or extend your time in this space-like space that has no time, and you're everywhere all at once. With that in mind, Itzhak Bentov has a little time experiment that he recommends people try. What I recommend you do, and I'll kind of make it a little bit more contemporary because he uses an analog watch as the example, but just take out your iPhone, just put it on the table, and just make sure you can see the time. And then close your eyes and imagine you're in a place that is very calming and soothing for you. It could be the mountains, it could be the beach, and try to just envision every single detail down to individual grains of sand. And try to actually imagine that you're there and try to make it as real as possible. After you do that for some time, stop, relax, and look at your watch or look at the time. Now, Bentov contends that by meditating like that, you should be able to extend what he calls subjective time. It will feel like it's much longer than the time that passes in your or on your iPhone. And just try it and let me know how it goes. But it's related to this, the like meditation and being able to raise yourself to a somewhat higher frequency. And the book goes on to talk about his theory of evolution, which is again, as I mentioned earlier, the exact opposite of the theory of entropy, where things become more complex over time. But he also says that our ability to open our aperture of perception increases as organisms evolve. So let's say I talk about 20 to 20K hertz in terms of the sorts of sound that you can perceive. Same thing with light, right? You can't perceive infrared frequencies at the bottom of the spectrum, and you can't at least see ultraviolet frequencies. You'd certainly feel their effects on both ends. But imagine if, as you become a more advanced organism and evolve, you can see more of that. You kind of extend that aperture of what your senses can perceive. And that's, his contention is that's what kind of meditation does. That's how astral projection works. But by doing those things, you should be able to extend your subjective time. As another example, let me tell you about the day I almost died. Now, this is not a near-death experience. It's just a very real experience where I was training. I was sitting at the top of my Humvee, manning the 50 cal machine gun, and we're driving kind of fast in the desert. And I ordered my driver to turn hard right, and he did exactly what I said he did. And time seemed to slow for me to the point that I could clearly think, we're about to roll over. I need to drop into my Humvee. I need to grab something. And then as soon as the Humvee lands, it pancakes, rolls over. I need to grab the fire extinguisher or make sure the driver grabs it once I check
Fuck. Y'all still there? All right, that's much better. Good Lord. All right, let me see what I missed. Okay, I saw that. Yep. No, my something to do with Chrome. Let's see. The 15-minute cities. Oh my god. Okay, let me try to finish. Try to get to where that video crashed. All right, this is. Bear with me because this thing's like. Slow. All right, this is. I'm sparing you off from some commercials. All right, let's see where we ended up. Okay, I'm reasonably close to where we left off. So, share screen.
And try to just envision every single detail down to individual grains of sand. And try to actually imagine that you're there. And try to make it as real as possible. After you do that for some time, stop, relax, and look at your watch or look at the time. Now, Bentov contends that by meditating like that, you should be able to extend what he calls subjective time. It will feel like it's much longer than the time that passes in your or on your iPhone. And just try it and let me know how it goes. But it's related to this, the like meditation and being able to raise yourself to a somewhat higher frequency. And the book goes on to talk about his theory of evolution, which is again, as I mentioned earlier, the exact opposite of the theory of entropy, where things become more complex over time. But he also says that our ability to open our aperture of perception increases as organisms evolve. So let's say I talk about 20 to 20K hertz in terms of the sorts of sound that you can perceive. Same thing with light, right? You can't perceive infrared frequencies at the bottom of the spectrum, and you can't at least see ultraviolet frequencies. You'd certainly feel their effects on both ends. But imagine if, as you become a more advanced organism and evolve, you can see more of that. You kind of extend that aperture of what your senses can perceive. And that's, his contention is that's what kind of meditation does. That's how astral projection works. But by doing those things, you should be able to extend your subjective time. As another example, let me tell you about the day I almost died. Now, this is not a near-death experience. It's just a very real experience where I was training. I was sitting at the top of my Humvee, manning the 50 cal machine gun, and we're driving kind of fast in the desert. And I ordered my driver to turn hard right, and he did exactly what I said he did. And time seemed to slow for me to the point that I could clearly think, we're about to roll over. I need to drop into my Humvee. I need to grab something. And then as soon as the Humvee lands, it pancakes, rolls over. I need to grab the fire extinguisher or make sure the driver grabs it. Once I check that he's okay, I need to tell him I'm okay. And then we need to evacuate the vehicle right away. To people who saw the accident happen from a distance, they thought I died. It happened so fast it looked like the Humvee crushed me. But for me, my subjective time was slow enough that I had all the time in the world to clearly think and to do exactly what I needed to do to survive. And survive I did. So go through, do that exercise, and in the comments below, let me know how it went. And if you enjoyed this video, you thought it was illuminating, please hit subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, and it helps this channel grow. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this video,
All right. So that's it, and that's all in terms of that video. So yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So this all happened because Kick Rocks asked if I read that book, and I'm like, have I read that book? And then I put together that almost exactly a year ago, maybe a little bit over a year ago. I had done that video, but that video, I mean, it's okay. It's not great, but it's done surprisingly or strangely well. So, yeah, who knows? All right, what other questions do people have? Frank, what do you want to talk about? You still around? Yeah. 15-minute cities. How do people like Klaus Schwab get the influence that they have? And it's just completely ridiculous. It's a complete clown show at the top. I mean, they're not doing well right now. I mean, like the Germans, like they're getting flooded with migrants right now. Maybe, I don't know, but where are they? Like, where are these guys? Oh, I would move to the mountains somewhere. Where like mountains with lots of trees. So maybe like Colorado, Montana, maybe even Utah. Um, Utah might be the safest place. Parts of Wyoming are pretty nice, but probably more expensive. But someplace in the mountains, I think, would be a nice place to live. Yeah, I gotta. He's like traveling in Italy. He's a bit of a. You gotta be delicate with him. Like, so yeah, you're right. I need to reach out. I haven't reached out to him yet. I should. Because he's a wild man. he, called, he called Danny Jones a dumb F. Like he's like, you're just a dumb fuck. Like on his show when he was a guest on his show. And yeah, you're rolling the dice. You're rolling the dice. That's all I'm saying. He's a super smart guy, but you're rolling the dice. Yeah, Idaho is pretty nice too. I agree with that. Like at least the mountainous parts of it. Yeah. So it's almost like Danny kind of did the test run for me, and I saw the test run. I'm like, "Ooh, I don't know. I don't. I like I look. I agree with some of the stuff he says, but it's a little too spicy for YouTube. A little too spicy. So we'll see. And when he lets his guard down, he's probably even more spicy than he was in that interview. So let's I'd be fine. I'd be fine in those states. I'd be totally fine. Um, because I'm not originally from California, right? I'm originally from the East Coast, so um, I came out here because of the weather was nice, but like work brought me out here, the tech industry, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of why I'm here. But after the pandemic, there's no. Actually, we should talk about that. What do people think about like work from home, hybrid versus like come to the office every day? Like, how do people feel about that whole thing? Because I'm watching this thing in like slow motion, and it's like a slow motion disaster. I just don't I don't I've never been more productive and efficient than I have in my entire life than I have been working from home. And like I ran like a finance department from my home, and it worked just fine. Let's see. So, but it's in is it in the mountains? I have a friend who lives in Rexburg, Idaho, who owns a pizza joint over out there. He's a good dude. He's a stealth bomber pilot, but in the back in the day. I've interviewed him. There's an interview on here, but YouTube did not promote it. So yeah, he says too much. But I sometimes I half think he's a red herring. Like sometimes I think the intelligence community has him out there intentionally. He's a unwitting disinformation agent. That's the one concern I have about him. I don't think he's doing it intentionally, but he's associated with people who collect creatures like that. Creatures by I mean by information agents or disinformation agents. Yeah, I have to look at, but I before I do any before I move or do anything like that, I want to make sure that I'm able to have a pretty stable business doing this stuff, and I'm still super early innings, so I make most of my money from consulting and from being a contractor at a local business school. But I can do it anywhere. I can do it from anywhere. I don't have to be in a specific place. Yeah, it definitely is. Oh yeah, yeah. They're trying to. They have like this huge commercial real estate footprint, and people just aren't using it. And here's the issue: like you have. This is what drives me crazy about these people. Like they want to like increase human misery when and then when there's already human misery, when the solution is pretty simple. Take those commercial outlets and convert them to residential out. Like, guys, it's not. I know it might be a pain in the ass to go through zoning and things like that, but that's the solution. If you're worried about your commercial real estate empire, dying, just convert it to residential units and lower the cost of housing for people, rather than like force them to endure 5 hours of traffic a day just so they can sit and be like 10% as productive because they're exhausted from the commute and pissed off and constantly interrupted by extroverts who like just want to like vampire up your energy. So yeah, I don't I'm huge anti back to office person. Um, Zero. I never attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. They're just incompetent. I mean, there's no other. They're greedy and incompetent. They don't get it. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't know what, like, they don't understand basic or even long-term cause and effect. That's what the problem is. You have morons who are in the elite and they think that they're smart because they backed a clown car into a gold mine in some business and just got lucky. So, you know, that's my view. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, that scares me too. This whole like surveillance, opt into everything. Let us record all your conversations. Um, yeah, the Chinese are already doing it, and I'd rather die than go into that situation. Yeah, see that's the issue. And there are like ham fit like I know a I wonder if I can tell this story. Um yeah, I'll tell this story, but I won't be specific about what department and what company. So there's a company that you would have heard in the news. I know somebody who was a chief executive there. This person left. But the the board decided without talking to the executives that they were going to mandate 5 days a week in office. And there are people during the pandemic who moved 3 states away, you know, and they're like, I have to like move in this market with interest rates as high as they are, buy a new house, like go F yourself. Like I quit. Right. It's just like it is amazing at how out of touch some leaders are. Like they don't get it. They don't they just decree that people are more productive in the office. And extroverts probably are, but introverts aren't, right? Like I my in my last kind of full-time job that I had, I remember anytime I had to come into the office, I had to spend the next 2 days working 20 hours a day just to catch up on all the work that I couldn't get done. Like and I still am. I am 10x more efficient working from home because I just wake up, brush my teeth, get dressed, come downstairs, and start working. And then I work and work and work. And then if I want to like get something to eat or get up, walk outside, and just kind of walk in circles a little bit to get a breather, I can. I'm not constantly interrupted, and I'm just more efficient. And but like sitting in a car for an hour and a half, and then you get to the office, you're pissed off. It takes an hour to like calm down. And then just when you start working, someone knocks on your door. Hey, you have a second? And they just completely throw you off when you're in the zone. Like it is a nightmare working in the office. So yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, yeah, you got to see. And you ask people like how could the Germans have done these awful, terrible things to 12 million people? We saw it during COVID. Like I know who those people are now, right? Like I know who you are. And if you try it again, good luck. I don't even know what Hanlon's razor is, but I'll have to take a look at it. Huh. I don't know though. Like, why would you want people to suffer? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So I had two sort of one of them I couldn't make use of, but two sort of prophetic. I went not even prophetic, but just precognitive. Um, And then I had one that made a third one that just hasn't. I don't know if it was precognitive. I won't know until the event happens. So the thing that I'm waiting for is I had a dream that basically had Mitch McConnell stepping down, or at least that's my interpretation of it. It hasn't happened yet. I think his term ends in like 2027, something like that. So if he leaves earlier, that'll be a precognitive hit. And then I had another one where Andrew Bustamante showed up in a dream, and it was really weird. I have no idea why he was in the dream. And 1 or 2 days later, I was talking to Danny Jones of the Concrete podcast, and he was just asking me background information about Morehouse as he prepared for the interview. And then I said, who else you should have on the show is Chris Bledsoe. And he's just like, what the hell's going on with all these synchronicities, man? This is crazy. I'm like, whoa, calm down. What's the issue? He's just like, what my friend told me just told me to do the exact same thing. I'm like, who's your friend? And he says, without missing a beat, Andrew Bustamante. So just weird stuff like that, right? That was a hit. And then the other hit was one evening I had a dream about the philosophy of Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, like just going through this anti-technology Luddite sort of philosophy. And the next morning I saw his name on Twitter, and I'm like, oh yeah, I had a dream about that. What happened? And I clicked on it, and he had died. He had died that day. So I don't know. The next one will be the Mitch McConnell thing. Will be the one that's, we'll see if it actually ends up being true. But in terms of the family, I have not. I should probably reach out if people want me to interview her again. I'd be happy to. It has been a while, so and she's been on a lot of other podcasts. So if folks are interested, I can do the same. Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense when you say feel exactly the same. I think you're talking about work from home, or work from office and stuff like that. Look, there's some jobs that you have to be in person, like construction jobs and things like that. Like I understand that, but yeah, it's the power thing I don't understand. Like, why does making people feel miserable a power thing, right? Like if somebody made me do that just because it made them feel powerful, like I would literally punch them in the face. Like it's just dumb. Yeah, people like that, they don't mess with me because I don't put up with it. And I've had lots of issues with authority in various jobs. In the military, I never did because the people, the primary thing they select for in the military is leadership quality, right? In industry, they don't. That's the last thing they select for. And people who are bad leaders, like they have problems with me. So, it is what it is. Yeah, they are 100%. They're basically the same. They're the same coin, just two sides of the same coin. 100%. Yeah, which is like why? Like I don't care what other people do, just as long as they don't bother me and they tell me what to do. I don't want to tell people what to do. Even with all this pronoun stuff, like I'll call you whatever you want. I don't care. Right? Just don't like dictate that I have to do something or not. If you say like I prefer to be called by this, fine. But if I make a mistake and you're like, you ruined it's just like, okay, I made a mistake. Like, deal with it. Don't have a meltdown. Yeah, it's like Schadenfreude, right? Weird. Yeah, they should be afraid. They should be afraid. Especially if people moved. Like, look, at the end of the day, if you're a good leader, you can tell You give somebody some work to do, and if it's not done, then you give them another chance and they screw it up again, they're gone. It's that simple. It's super simple. But people have this like urge to be micromanagers, and they think you're not working if they can't see you. It's a really twisted mentality that people need to get out of their heads. Sorry, I'm like just going further down the list just to make sure. I mean, does anybody have a good argument for coming back to work? Like why? Like I don't have a problem with hybrid either. I understand there are some occasions when you need to be physically present, particularly for like new recruits and things like that. I get it, but yeah. And I can imagine people just schedule meetings just to, feel important. Like, oh, I need to have meetings because this is the day everybody's here. And I mean, like, how many of you have been in a meeting where you're like, wow, if we didn't have this meeting, I wouldn't know what to do. Right? 90% of the meetings I've been in my entire life could have been avoided with either a phone call or an email. That's it. But I mean, I've been in meetings like somebody would call me. Yeah, it does. But like I've been in meetings where I would sit down and some like third party would call this meetings, like some consultant we were paying for, and they would be talking and I would just say, wait, stop. What is the purpose of this meeting? And they would say, oh, it's to leverage the blibbity blop to make sure everyone is aligned on the program so we have synchronicities here. I'm like, okay, what do you need me for? Well, I was hoping for your input. Okay, I'll give you my input in an email. I'm leaving, and I would just get up and walk out of the meeting. Like I would relish those moments because people waste your time, and you have to be aggressive about protecting it. But yeah, you and me both, brother. Yeah, you gotta get. But that's the thing. It's just like there's no allure to sitting in your car for 5 hours. It's just not healthy. It's not good for your mental health. It's not. And until I started kind of doing this entrepreneurial thing, like, look, I'm not making nearly as much as I used to make when I worked for a corporation, but I'm making significantly more than I was the prior year, and I'm significantly happier because I am responsible for myself, right? If I don't work hard, then I spend more money, or more money drains out of the bank account, and it's all on me, and I'm happy about that. Like I'd rather take responsibility than work for a bunch of sniveling morons who are blaming each other but not doing anything, claiming credit for stuff. And like, I don't play that game. I just do the work. I do the fucking work. And I don't play politics. I don't enjoy playing politics. If you're not, carrying your weight and you're asking me to do your work, fuck you. Fuck you. And that's just the way I've always been. And people don't like that. And because I worked in finance, I knew like if someone was not managing their budget or was overspending or playing games, and people don't get stuff past me, and they're frightened of that. And that's why I don't like working in meetings. Moon Man, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. I kept it going. To see that we're talking about remote work, and not so remote work, and how much I love it. That's why there's a little spicy language for you. So, but I appreciate the super chat. Thank you, my friend. I've had enough. I've had enough of like, you ever seen that video with a football player? You know, you're late again. He like tackles somebody. He's like, oh, hi, Janice. I can't remember what it is, but like, I can't remember. Yeah, it's just people waste your time. I mean, like, I gotta like look. I have a temper too. Like I've there was this one guy who he was the nicest guy in the world, but he had the absolute worst timing. Like you would just be going through some crisis, and then like he would like pop his head in your office and he'd be like, "Hey, Sean, have you looked at this today?" And I literally would like throw a stapler at the guy, not at the guy, but like at the wall. He would make me so angry. And you can't do that stuff anymore. Like I did that, like, I mean, even when I did it, it was probably like 12 years ago. You couldn't do that. You can't even do that anymore. Well, I mean, you couldn't do that then either if he had like reported it or something like that. But like, he's a good guy, but you just can't. But, I would get really, really, really amped up with just people being idiots. Absolutely. Yeah, no drama. No drama. And then it's just like the way rumors spread and stuff like that. Like, yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just like, well, why do you have to bring everybody else to deal with your problem? Right. Yeah. No, that movie, like that's the way it really is. At least like at the work level. Have you any of you seen Succession? Have you any of you seen that movie, or not movie, but that series on HBO with has anyone seen that? Yeah, that's what working in investment banking is, like exactly like that. Like you are surrounded by sociopath or by psychopaths. Um like no teamwork, nothing. Like I came from the military, and that's the one thing that like it sets you up for like attention to detail and like being able to like work like a maniac. But the one thing that it will you'll get ambushed on is teamwork, because there is no teamwork in some of these organizations. And same thing with taking responsibility. Like when I had analysts, I would like if they screwed something up, I would just take responsibility for it, like no questions asked. I'm in charge. It's on me. But like some of these little bastards would like say, yeah, he screwed up. And you'd be like, what? Like, I just took a bullet for you. And this is what, like, so lots of backstabbing, stuff like that. And I'm just not, hold on. You should be able to hear me. So I just have to change my camera. So there we go. Just back up a little bit. Problem solved. Problem solved. I did it a lot faster this time, but yeah, I have a camera. It's supposed to be recharging because it's plugged in my computer, but it just Sony doesn't bother. But yeah, like I just don't. I'm of that age, of that vintage now, where I just don't like. I'm not dealing with it anymore. I'm not dealing with these. Even with the consulting work, like I negotiate. Like this is exactly what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to deliver it. There's going to be some back and forth, and I just tell them exactly what it's going to look like, exactly how it's going to go, what the uncertainty is, and then I just deliver the project, and everybody's happy. But I don't have to go to like, oh, you need to show yourself because we're having this, corporate party, and those things are fucking. Those things are a disaster because, nowadays people get drunk and you could be stone cold sober, but if they report you did something and somebody else that looks like you did it, they will throw the book at you now. It doesn't matter. Believe all, insert special aggrieved whoever, right? So I'm just at this point in my life, I'm doing my own thing. I'm just going to build multiple businesses, and it's going to work because it has to work. Because I blew up the bridge behind me, and I'm going to fight until I make it work, and that's just the way it is. I'm doing a ton of things. I'm working more than I ever have, right? 12, 7 days a week, 12 to 18 hour days. But as long as I keep showing progress, I'm going to keep doing it. But again, I'm doing like multiple things. I'm doing all sorts of kind of crazy, crazy stuff. So I'm doing the channel. I'm like, I just finished a book. I just finished an anthology. I just finished, I'm doing consulting. I make most of my money from consulting right now. And I don't want to, right? Because it's just the most lucrative. But if hopefully the channel starts generating more income so that I don't have to expand that business, which right now it still looks like I have to do, or find other ways, um, more lucrative ways to generate income. But it's still better than, like, I don't experience the stress that I would experience working in a corporation, right? Like, what does he think of me? What does this person think? Like, because everybody in California smiles and is nice to your face. But they're like, like on the East Coast, people, if they don't like you, they'll let you know they don't like you. I prefer that mentality. In California, it's very passive aggressive, and I'm kind of a very I'm an aggressive person, right? If I don't like you, I'll tell you I don't like you. If you screw it up, I'll tell you screwed up. But I'll do it in a nice way, and I'll give you constructive feedback. But yeah, like it's people don't like that out here. They don't like if you cut in line at the bar. I'll say something to you. Usually it's like, hey, you, yeah, in that jacket, you think you're special or something? There's a whole line right here, and people freak out. They don't know how to handle it. They're like, this guy must be crazy. This guy must be crazy, and they all look at you like you're the crazy one. It's like, that fucker butt in line. Like it's not acceptable. So anyway, I have a very I took this 5-factor personality test. This like Jordan Peterson thing that he has, but it's not a Jordan Peterson thing. He has like a version of the test you can take, but it's the most econometrically sound personality test. And like there are 3 things that make people very successful in business, right? High IQ is part of it. Maybe it's 4 things: high IQ, high extroversion. So high IQ, high extroversion, high in conscientiousness, and then the other one was high disagreeableness, right? So I'm not really extroverted, but I have extremely high conscientiousness. I probably have high IQ, but I'm not going to go into that. And I am, if there are 100 people in a room, according to that test, 99 of them are more agreeable than I am. Like people like me, if they don't, fortunately, I have a high conscientiousness score, so industriousness, things like that. So like, it's something like if there's like 100 people in a room, 99 or 92 of them are less conscientious than I am. But people who have low conscientiousness and high disagreeableness tend to be criminals. So just the conscientiousness thing kind of helps me out, let's just say. Also, so the 5 factors are neuroticism, conscientiousness, extroversion, missing 2. I've already said a few of them. Openness, right? So openness to experience, and then I'm missing one. What? Why am I missing this? I'd have to look this thing up. I mean, what was it? I'll just type it in. I'll just do a Google search. I'll tell you exactly what it is. So 5-factor model of personality. Yeah, so it's extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and openness to experience. So those are the 5. So I'm high on conscientiousness, low on agreeableness, middling on extroversion, and then high, kind of moderately high on openness to new experience. And I mean, I have a YouTube channel, so I'm high on neuroticism, just so you guys know, if it's not already blatantly obvious. So anyway, yeah, agreeableness. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're in a group and you want to go out to dinner, okay? And somebody wants to go have sushi, and everybody's like, "Yeah, sushi's great." I'm the guy who'll be like, "I don't like sushi, so I'm out." And they're like, "Well, like the group wants to go and get sushi." Yeah, well, I don't. So good luck. And you know, most people will just kind of go along to get along. I won't. I just won't. So people like me in a population are good for like preventing lemmings from walking off a hill, but we're also, if I it's like it's kind of a measure of stubbornness. Like I can't be moved. So it's useful in a population, but it's also maladaptive in certain situations as well. It just depends. So yeah, yeah. So again, 100 people in a room. I'm the most disagreeable person in that group of 100, which is good for times like now when authorities are telling you to do things when they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Right. So you need people to question this sort of stuff. Anyway, that is what it is. All right. What else? Moon Man. What do you and Frank want me to talk about? Because you guys showed up a little bit later to the game. Oh yeah, depend like it's okay if you cross me if you have like a good argument and you do it to my face, but you do it behind my back, you are dead to me forever. Forever. So yeah, I keep grudges forever. At least for just for people who stab me in the back. Like people who lie and are dishonest and stab me in the back. Like I have zero tolerance for disloyalty. Yeah. Where? No, no, not that Frank. No, 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 no. No. As far as I know, he's not here. This Frank. You know him from the Zoom meetings. Hey, how you doing, Mark G? You came in like how many hours are we into this thing? Oh my god. We're like over 2 hours, 2.5 hours into this thing. Yeah, we've been talking about crazy stuff. We talked about the Israel Hamas thing. We talked about Monsters of California, that movie. We talked about I showed my trailer. We talked about me finishing my book. We showed some of the Halloween merch with the owl in my backyard. And then yeah, I always appreciate you, Moon Man. I your your Twitter account's pretty spicy though. It sounds like you have a question. Oh hey. Yeah. Um what else we talked? We talked about the 5-factor personality test. We were just talking about that. Talked about work from home and how it is by far superior to an office environment. Um, and yet people keep pushing the office environment, which makes no sense. Oh yeah. I I don't think that's. I mean, I don't think that's real. I think that just guy in a Bigfoot costume or guy just wearing like a hoodie or something. But I don't know. It's those things can easily be faked. You know. What did you think of it? I don't know if I can. It's on Twitter somewhere. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find it. I doubt I'll be able to find it this quickly, but um. Oh, popped right up. All right. Let me pull it in. Preset. Share screen.
Yeah, let me see your camera. I'll do it. It's an elusive creature. All right, just squat it down. Yeah, let me see your camera. I'll do it.
Here it is
An
again.
elusive creature. All right, just squat it down. Yeah, let me see your camera. I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a dude. It's probably a dude in a suit, especially the way he reacted, where he just kind of like walked around and then sat down and. Yeah, look, it's possible, but I don't. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they say. Like people who see Bigfoot describe it as a human, like a human looking face. So that part's not damning. It's just you can't tell how tall it is. You can't really tell from the gait, right? It's probably a fake. That's what I thought it was too, like a ghillie suit, like a sniper ghillie suit, and the guy's just walking around in it. So, yeah. All right. All right. I think it might be time to call it. Maybe. Oh, let's see. Hold on. Interesting. Yeah, it's hard to tell from a camera too because when you see it up, it seems more real when you see it with your own eyes than with a camera. The camera lens, like it seems like it's farther away and stuff like that. Like I had to get really close to the owl to take the video that I took of it. I'll just show you the for those who didn't see it. I have a video too, but I don't have it. It's not readily available. Just give me a second here. Okay. Take it y'all can see that. So this was like this is not like a natural uh National Geographic photo. Like this is the owl that was in my wow, why is this doing this? Hold on. This was the owl in my backyard. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a better view of this thing. All right, there we go. Yeah, so this is the thing in my backyard. Let's see. All right. See you next time, Moon Man. I appreciate you. I'll see you at Timepiece Adventures. Yeah, and he knows it. I mean, look at him. It's just like preening for the camera. And like I got close. I was expecting it to fly away, and it did. It just let me take pictures. Thank you. Yeah, they I think I have like a male and female pair like that live around my backyard. So they were there last night. And this is kind of weird, but I'll whistle to them, and they'll hoot back, and then we go back and forth. I mean, they'll do it for hours. They're really, really, really interesting animals, and there's like a lot of like mysticism about them and stuff like that. So anyway, I think they're pretty awesome. All right, it's probably now. I guess it's time to call it. So going once for questions, going once, going twice. Any more? All right. I think it's time to call it. Let me just get something going. All right, thank you everyone. Another question. Have a great night. Thank you everyone. Good to see you all.